seems a little odd. You tell me.
Officer or detective is fine.
Detective. All right, I think I'll stick with detective.
Sounds good,
All
Counselor.
right, Detective Brown, you were just testifying about the computer that was being stolen. Yep.
Yes,
And you testified about the search history that you were able to video.
correct.
And you also testified about the Fresh Start program.
Correct.
All right, I will want to get into all of that, but I want to focus for a moment on Google search results. You were able to obtain Google search history records outside of just what was on the website.
Correct. There was minimal records from what I remember.
You were able to get his activity from December 29th of 2022 through October 6th of 2022? Does that sound right? Nope, 2021, I apologize.
Could you tell me what, I don't recall that without knowing what account we're referring to.
1 moment. I'm going to go ahead and show you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibit 247. And I believe it would be the first Peter Black at gmail.com.
I do agree, and I do recognize this, and I agree that it's related to firstpeterblack@gmail.com, and that it shows, sorry. Shows some search history from July 29th through of 22 through October 6th of 22.
I'm sorry, I had those dates wrong. So July through October, well, end of July through October of 2022.
That is correct.
And that document is about 76 pages long.
I agree.
All right, I'd like to ask you about some specific search terms. And I think that some can be a little embarrassing. So there were a lot of searches that related to something called keratosis.
I recall that term, yes.
Okay. There were a lot of search terms regarding progesterone and something called Raypete.
Yes.
There were several search terms of a medical nature having to do with medical issues without getting into sort of the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
Is that fair? There were searches regarding the effect of hormones on men.
Yes.
There were search terms regarding issues with men's voices related to these other medical terms. Is that
I don't
fair?
remember that one specifically, but
Okay. There were search terms regarding what I will just call belly trouble.
yes.
Is that fair? There were also some less, I guess, private terms. There was one for Robo J. Jonah Jameson. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that one.
I could give you back the state's exhibit. So, Shona J. Jameson. If you want to refresh your recollection, that's on page 28 of that document.
I see one that says searched Robo J. Jonah Jameson
All right.
on September 8th, 2022.
Logan also searched Marie Antoinette. That's on page 59 if you want to look.
I agree, I see it.
He Googled reflections on the revolution in France.
Page, please.
Same page, 59.
I see it and I agree.
He Googled the definition of sophistry. That's on 58.
I see it and I agree.
He Googled storage units in the Burlington, Vermont area. That's pages 52 and 53.
I do recall that one.
He Googled the weather in Burlington, Vermont many times.
I recall that, yes.
He also Googled the definition of gregarious.
I don't recall that one. Do you have a page number?
Okay. Why don't we look at page 67 because there's some that I want to talk about there. If I can have a moment.
Of course.
I was just going to do some of the specifics because I didn't have it before. So, I apologize. I'm actually not going to ask you about those. Would you agree that they're of a personal and medical nature, though?
I do.
And he Googled a lot of things just generally about vitamins.
I recall that.
And he did on at least one occasion, it looks like it was at the same time, he did Google Concord News in July 31st of 2022.
Do you have the page number for that one, Counselor?
Yes, that is on page 65.
I see it and I agree.
All right. And it looks like it was searched twice, but it's 4 seconds apart. Is that fair? One's at 11:38:50 and the other one's at 11:38:54.
Based on my experience, I wouldn't agree that it was searched twice. I can explain that if need be.
No, if you don't think it was searched twice, then that's
It was not searched twice.
okay. So even though he did those fresh starts on his computer, you were able to get some of his Google history, is basically the point here. Yes?
This history came from Google itself, so this was not recovered from the laptop.
Understood, but you were able to obtain that.
Yes.
All right. So I am going to travel back in time, and I want to talk about what happened essentially in April and in May. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to just keep this going as we go along, but I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as Defendant's Exhibit 1171, and I will give you my black pen. And so I just want to make sure that we all have our dates straight, and I'm not going to just go straight through the calendar with you right now, but as we talk about things, I may ask you to go ahead and write them down for me on the dates. I would also ask that the court take judicial notice that the dates on that calendar are correct and that those do in fact reflect the numbers and days of the week as they correspond to the months of March and April of 2022.
If you just give me 1 second, I can do that. Does the state want to be heard further, or any objection to the court taking judicial notice?
No objection.
Okay, members of the jury, when the court takes judicial notice of facts, and I am doing so with regards to the two-page document, which has been marked as Defense Exhibit 1171 for identification, containing the months of April and May of 2022, means that I have confirmed from a reliable source that these are in fact the dates, the correct days of the week that reflect the numbers on those dates for April and May of 2022, and this is an accurate copy of those documents setting out those dates. You may but are not required to accept those facts when I take judicial notice of those facts as being established for purposes of your deliberations in the case. But I do take judicial notice that those are in fact the accurate dates.
All right, thank you, Judge. All right, Detective, so the first date I want to talk about, well, yesterday on direct, you testified about a brisk walk that you took. Do you recall this?
Yes,
And I believe that was in July of 2022?
correct.
And the brisk walk essentially had you leaving from not Shaw's, but rather you had already crossed Loudon Road and you walked from there to the parking lot of Broken Rounds Trail and then continued on to essentially the space where there was the bullet fragment was recovered.
That is correct.
All right. And you testified that it was a brisk walk.
Yes,
And I believe you had said that it had taken you 8 minutes from that place that we just discussed across Loudon Road to the parking lot to the Broken Grounds Trail.
about 8 minutes, yes.
About 8 minutes. And then you testified that it took you about 4 minutes to go from that space to the area where the bullet fragment was recovered alongside some blood.
That's correct, but to clarify, I was using a watch without seconds, so I wasn't looking at seconds. So it could be anywhere between 4 and 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Okay, so you were using a watch without seconds?
Yeah, the watches generally don't have a second, at least this face does not have seconds on it.
Okay. Previously in this investigation, you've actually used apps, I believe it was Strava, to map your locations and timing and things of that nature. Is that correct?
I did not use it for that particular occasion.
All right. And so you took a similar walk, not the complete walk, but you took a similar walk back on May 5th of 2022. You walked from that parking lot to the essentially what's been dubbed the crime scene where that bullet fragment and blood were located.
Correct?
You did that walk in May. And when you did that walk in May, it took you 5 minutes and 15 seconds.
I recall that?
So that's correct? That is what it took you?
Correct.
All right. So I want to talk more generally about the search. But can you go ahead? Well, let me ask first. The bodies of the Reeds were located by Concord Police in conjunction with other people on April 21st. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Can you go ahead and write in that box on your calendar that was the date the bodies were recovered?
What do you want me to write? Bodies recovered?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And you've testified about this before, on direct, but I believe you were the person that set up the, not necessarily the perimeter, but the log for people coming in and out of the area that was dubbed the crime scene. Is that correct?
I got the first crime scene log to the scene. So I started the crime scene log. I wasn't there continuously.
Understood. That would be a lot of time. But you did start that log, and at a later time, you are the one that actually collected all of the logs and you put them into the computer, and so we have a complete record of the people going in and out of the scene for those days.
What I believe to be correct, yes.
Okay. And so if you can draw an arrow, well, I apologize, backing up again. So the scene was secure until April 23rd.
That is correct.
All right. Can you please draw an arrow for me, just spanning through the 21st to the 23rd, indicating that it was a secure scene?
I put an arrow and the word secure crime scene above the arrow, running from the 21st through the 23rd.
Thank you, Detective. All right, so I want to talk about some of the specific searches done on those days. You were present at some point during all 3 days, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so on April 23rd, this is the day that there was a line search conducted.
That is correct.
Would you mind writing line search under the 23rd, please?
Can I just ask, am I writing a lot? How much space, how small do I need to write?
Not terribly small, but small.
Okay, it's written.
Thank you, Detective. All right, and so that line search, that basically spanned, it started in the area under the power lines,
Yes.
basically from the top of the ridge to the parking lot.
Yes.
And there was also a marshy area there that was not searched.
That was searched, but that was searched only by individuals that had waterproof boots and stuff of that nature.
I apologize. So yes, it was searched separately by people with waterproof equipment, including, I believe, a waterproof metal detector.
I don't recall a waterproof metal detector.
All right. Nonetheless, the line search, that process took several hours.
Yes.
And at one point, the line search did go into the specific area of the crime scene.
That's correct.
Now, you testified on direct that you did not collect, I think the language you may have used was any major pieces of evidence, something
Yes,
along
that
those
sounds correct. Major evidence, I believe I said.
Okay. You said not major evidence, but you did collect some evidence.
I collected some items, yes.
Okay. One of those items was a used finger bandage,
That's correct.
and that was located within the overall crime scene.
That was located at the edge of the expanded crime scene, yes.
The expanded crime scene or the edge of the overall crime scene?
I think we're using different terms for the same area. If you recall the rectangular shape graphic that we had for April 22nd, it was a red rectangle.
Yes.
That is, you could refer to it either as the overall crime scene or the expanded crime scene.
Okay. That's fine. So that was located. Another thing that you did take into evidence was a small liquor bottle,
Yes,
and that was recovered from the power line area.
it was.
That appeared to be relatively new.
Yes,
You also seized a piece of blue nylon material.
I did.
After the line search was conducted, the search didn't really stop then, though.
The line search ended, and most of the personnel involved in the line search ended their shifts. Concord PD then went back up to the to the overall or the expanded crime scene.
Okay, because the line search, it involved more than just Concord PD. I believe you had testified that it was Fish and Game and possibly state troopers there as well?
That's correct.
Okay. 20 plus people for that process?
More than 20. If you have the crime scene log, I could get the exact number.
Okay. So after the line search is over, you and some other Concord detectives go back to the scene,
Correct?
and the scene is still secure at that time.
Yes.
And one of the objects seized at that point was a green piece of fabric.
Correct.
All right. You were also using, perhaps not you personally, but you were also using metal detectors at this time.
There was a Concord PD metal detector. I don't believe there was two. I could be wrong, and I did not use the metal detector on that day.
Okay. But you were there and you did see that metal detector being used.
Correct.
Okay. So I would like to show you some photographs. Apologize. All right, so I would like to show you some photographs from that day, and I am going to hand you what has been marked as full exhibits, 1001, 10-2, 10-3.
Not the last one.
I apologize, Your Honor, I'm having a little difficulty reading these.
No problem.
So I have 10-01 through 10-05. All right, and in those photographs, the area that is captured by the photograph is essentially the Marsh Loop Trail, and it is facing tree number 1 that we've talked about extensively. Yes?
The first 3 appear to show tree 1. The last 2 do not.
Okay, so the first 3 show tree 1, but again, they are essentially showing that top of the Marsh Loop Trail in the area of, what we've all been calling the drag path.
Correct.
All right. And whomever it was that was using the metal detector on this day actually was able to locate something underground.
Yes.
All right. And so what was that thing underground?
That was the hollow point type bullet.
And that was located 3 to 4 inches underground?
Correct.
All right. And I want to point your attention to the very top of Defendant's 1002. And here you can see the tree at the very top. Would you agree that that is tree number 1?
Absolutely.
All right. And right behind that tree, you can see essentially the waist down of a person in jeans.
Yes,
And that person is holding a metal detector.
that is correct.
Okay. Permission to publish
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely.
And the last 2 photos in that series, I believe, was 04 and 05. Those 2 photographs show the area where that spent bullet was located. So, looking at 1005.
I agree. 1005, 1004, it is towards the top, so it's not this area here. It's this area right there.
Okay, but we can also see some holes that are dug on 1004 in a different area.
Yes.
Okay. And all of those holes were dug as a result of the use of the metal detector.
Correct.
All right. Permission to publish 10:04 and 10:05, Your Honor.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That tree number 1, is where Assistant Attorney General Ward had located 2 casings on May 20th.
Correct.
All right. Can you go ahead and write on our calendar for May 20th, casings found? 2. 2 casings found.
Okay.
All right. And so you had actually been present that day,
On which day?
on May 20th,
Yes,
and Attorney Ward had called you over.
that's correct.
Would you agree that it was sudden when he called you over?
Yes,
And you were also able to observe those 2 casings.
yes, I was.
At that time, I think that there was some testimony, either you or Detective Gorham went to go and get the metal detector, someone stayed with the casings during that time. Does that sound accurate?
That's correct. I don't remember who was who, though.
Right. That seems to be the confusion. Once that metal detector was obtained, you used it on May 20th.
Yes,
And you noted that the metal detector was working.
yes,
You actually used it to sort of wave it over the shell casings.
correct.
And the metal detector beeped and it did not have an issue.
Did I mark that in a report? I don't recall it specifically doing that.
Okay. Would you agree that it was picking up the shell casings consistently and without issue?
I don't recall doing that. I remember using the metal detector and finding another item in the area that indicated to me that it was working. If I put in a report that I did that, I'm happy to
Okay.
refresh my memory with that.
I'm gonna approach.
Of course.
So this is page 376. And you write that the metal detector appeared to be working properly, picking up the shell casings consistently and without issue.
Yes,
All right, and so you were going exactly where I was headed next. And you continued your search on that day with that metal detector.
Correct.
On May 20th. And you were able to locate a muzzle loader?
that's what I wrote it as. I don't know exactly what it is. It was a much larger form of a bullet that appeared to be old, and I presume that it was a muzzle loader. I'm not an expert, though, so.
Okay. And that was 10 feet away from the trail.
Is that the definition or the, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Yeah, that is what it says, 10 feet away from the trail.
The muzzle loader, how deep underground was that located?
A few inches, I don't recall the exact amount,
Does
but I had
three-
to dig for it.
3 to 4 inches?
That sounds right.
Okay. All right. So, in April, we talked about on April 26th that you had, I believe this was the day that, I apologize. On April 26th, you went to the crime scene. A couple times, actually.
Yes,
First, you went with Detective. Actually, nope. You went and walked the power lines. Does that sound right?
I walked, yes, the area under the power lines and then to the west of the power lines, if I'm thinking of the same thing that you're referring to.
Yes. And you also did something that you testified about on direct, was you went and you were collecting GPS coordinates.
Correct.
All right. And you testified on direct that one of the coordinates that you collected was the point where Miss Nutt had indicated to you that the reeds had passed her on the trail.
Correct.
All right. And that eventually did make it onto a chart.
It's down there.
That made it into a map that you produced. So I'm looking at State's Exhibit 212.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about how this was made, because this sort of overview map, the little yellow pins in it, that's not something that came off of Ms. Nutt's phone. Is that correct?
The yellow dots are absolutely from Dan Nutt's phone.
The coordinates are, but the phone, I believe you had testified that you had made this in Google Earth Pro. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so what you did was you took the coordinates given to you by her phone and essentially mapped them out.
Correct.
Okay, and so you testified that one of the things that you collected on the 26th was the location where she had pointed out to you that the reeds passed her.
Yes.
All right. Now, when you did that walkthrough with Dr. Nutt, you did not take the GPS coordinates at that time.
Correct.
And when you did that walk with Dr. Nutt, you had asked her to point out several different things.
Correct.
So the first thing you did was you met with her. I believe that was on April 25th, if you wouldn't mind writing that on the calendar. Walk through with Dr. Nutt.
Okay.
And so you met her at the entrance of you met her at the Portsmouth entrance of the Marsh Loop Trail.
Correct.
And you wanted her to point out different things to you.
Yes.
And you didn't point things out to her.
Correct.
So you wanted to be objective.
Yes.
And you actually had a camera with you.
I had an iPad with me, yes.
iPad, yes, that has a camera in it.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. And before the hike began, you indicated to Dr. Nutt that you wanted to know where the reeds passed her on the trail.
Correct.
You indicated to her that you wanted to know where it was that she lost visual track of the reeds.
Correct.
You wanted to know where she was when she heard the gunshots.
Yes.
And you wanted to know her location when she first saw a man on the trail.
Yes.
And I believe the last point was you wanted to know where she met a second person on the trail, a second man, and stopped to chat with them.
Correct.
All right. And so when you did all of that, you told her that ahead of time so she knew what it was that she was supposed to be pointing out to you.
That's correct.
When you did that, you did not stop at tree number 1.
Correct.
All right. on this particular day when you were doing the walkthrough with Dr. Nutt, you had actually asked her to bring her dogs with her?
Yes, I believe so.
And so you got to meet her two dogs.
Correct.
I believe it's Bodie and Coriander.
That's correct.
They're sort of easy to remember, right?
I can't remember the first one. What was it again, Bodie?
I think so.
Okay. Corey, I remember.
All right, and so we talked about the iPad you had with you, but you weren't actually recording continuously.
No.
And you weren't grabbing the GPS units in that moment.
I may not have been certain if it would collect that automatically, and I may have discovered later that it didn't, and I went back.
That's fine.
I didn't use a separate app or anything like that to get GPS coordinates that day.
Okay.
Is it a paper size or thing? That should be with you.
I apologize, Judge. I'm a little stumped here.
No problem.
All right, we will have to come back to Dr. Nutt. I apologize. You testified on direct about, and I'm not going to ask you any details, but just generally, that this case received a fair amount of media attention. Is that fair?
I would agree with that. I don't remember testifying to that, but I would agree to that.
Okay, well. And so,
This is an extra copy, it's not the one that's
okay. All right, and so there was some media coverage, and one of the things that you sort of realized very early on from people approaching you on the trail, even while the scene was still secure, was that the news was sort of out and people were aware that it, not necessarily perhaps what happened, but that something had happened.
I agree.
And the scene was closed for those 3 days, but people became aware of essentially where the recovery site was.
Objection.
If counsel would approach.
I'll withdraw.
Okay, thank you.
One of the tasks that I believe you had asked Detective Harabitz and Ryder to do was to set up game cameras. Is that correct?
It's Detective Harbitz and
How did
Detective
I say
Ryder. Harabitz.
Harabitz.
I agree. I wouldn't say necessarily that it was I that directed them. That was something that came up and they agreed to do it. I don't recall specifically me telling them to do that.
Okay. But they did go and do that.
They did?
And they did that on April 25th?
Correct?
All right, can you mark on the calendar on April 25th, game cameras up?
Okay.
And I believe at that time, there were 2 cameras that were put up on the 25th.
That is correct?
One was sort of looking down towards the recovery site,
Correct?
and one was looking, was supposed to be looking more on the actual trail.
Correct.
You later learned that there was a malfunction with one of the cameras.
The one covering the trail, that's correct.
Okay, I think it was like camera number 2.
I don't know that I ever, I think I called that one Marsh Loop Trail camera.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly, but it is the one that was covering the actual trail itself, not the body recovery location.
Okay, and so Detective Harabitz and Ryder went out and tried to deal with that malfunction on April 26th.
They did, and it was later on that we discovered that we had to just replace that camera entirely.
Can you write on our calendar malfunction addressed for game camera?
I can, I would just clarify that it wasn't corrected.
Understood.
Can I write not corrected, or?
If you want to, yeah.
Okay,
All right. At some point during your investigation, or rather during several different points during your investigation, you were able to recover photographs from those the functioning game camera.
correct.
All right. So I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as Defendant's Exhibit 1132 through 11. Well, we'll do these. Yeah, we'll do these one at a time. All right. So this is Defendant's Exhibit 1132. And you retrieved the information off the game cameras, and at one point you did review all of those photographs.
Correct.
All right, and so would you agree that this is a fair and accurate depiction of the game camera image from May 6, 2022?
I would.
All right, and it was taken at about 9:30 a.m.?
9:38 a.m., correct.
At this point, 9:38.
Yes.
At this point, I'd ask to strike the identification and mark this as a full exhibit.
Any objection?
No, just the number.
1132 is full exhibit.
All right. So, and in this photograph, we can see a gentleman, right?
Yes.
And he seems to be looking around the area. He's looking, his head is oriented down, so he's looking down in the area of where the Reed's bodies were recovered.
It looks to me like he's looking to the right of it, to the right of that's tree number 5.
Okay. Permission to publish this one? To the
Absolutely.
All right, I am going to hand you Defendant's Exhibit 1133. And this particular photograph is also from the game camera we've been discussing.
It is.
And it was taken on May 9th,
I agree.
13:23. So that's about 1:30, not quite 1:30 in that
It's
case?
1:23 p.m.
1:23 p.m. And just behind a tree, you can see that there is a person.
That is correct.
All right. At this point, I'd ask to strike the ID on Defendant's 1133 and publish.
Any objection?
No.
1133 is the full exhibit.
Next, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit for identification 1136. And this is another photo from that game camera.
It is.
And this one's dated May 18th.
It is,
And this one is at 13:53.
which is 1:53 p.m.
I so appreciate you doing that for me. And over there in the right-hand corner, you can see a gentleman. It looks like he's wearing a striped shirt.
Yes,
Looks like he's maybe drinking something.
I agree.
All right. I would ask to strike the identification on Defendant's 1136, mark this as a full exhibit, and publish to the jury.
Any objection?
No.
1136 is the full exhibit.
Next, I'm gonna hand you what's been marked for identification as Defendant's Exhibit 1135. Again, we're still looking at the same game camera.
I agree.
And this photograph was taken on May 18th
Correct.
at 18:11.
6:11 p.m.
Appreciate that again. And in this photograph, it looks like perhaps it's a man on a bike with a black dog.
That's correct.
All right. At this point, I'd ask to strike the identification on 1135 and enter, this is a full exhibit, and publish to the jury.
Any objection? 1135 is full exhibit.
All right, now I'm going to hand you defendants for identification 1134, and you would agree that this is the same game camera we've been discussing?
I do. I believe this is the same gentleman we just saw.
All right, so this was on 5/18 at 18:09.
I agree. 18:09 is 6:09 p.m.
6:09 p.m. So it's likely the same gentleman, but we can actually see his face. He's coming back on the bicycle now. Is that fair?
Could I just see what time that one was at? The date and time?
Oh, this one is 18:11.
Right. So then this would be the earlier shot of him going downhill, and that would be him going uphill.
Okay. All right, so I would ask to strike the identification on defendants 1134, enter it as a full exhibit, and publish to the jury.
Any objection?
Nope.
1134 is a full exhibit.
And I will go ahead and, I apologize for doing them out of order, I will publish it along with 1135
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. And then that'll probably be where we'll end for the day.
Okay, thank you. If I can just have one more, and then I've done with the photographs, I just want him to write on the calendar.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Detective, on that calendar in front of you, if you could please write visitor on the dates that we've discussed, and I'll give them to you again. It's May 6th from 11:32.
Is 11:32 the number or the time?
That was the exhibit number.
Do you want me to write that on here as well?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
On May 9th, can you also write visitor? That's from defendant's exhibit 1133.
Okay.
On May 18th, can you please write visitor? And that's from defendant's exhibit 1136.
Okay.
And May 18th, if you could write visitor.
It's the same day, so I already have, and it's the same guy. Right?
Oh, actually, so if we're looking at the exhibits, we have 1134 and 1135 who are the same guy, but we have a different guy on 1136. He's our gentleman who looks to be drinking something.
Okay.
So maybe just write two visitors.
I'll put visitor X2.
Perfect. All right, if that is a good ending point.
That really is a good ending point, because we are at 3:59, according to my computer. So we will adjourn for the weekend. We will start on Monday and Tuesday at 9 o'clock. We're gonna go 9 to 4, Monday and Tuesday. We will not take a long break. I have another judge here who's gonna take my drug court, so we'll take, and I'm just trying to maximize the trial days to the extent we're able to do that. So we'll start at 9 and go to 4 on both Monday and Tuesday of next week. On Wednesday, we'll start at 10. I don't know about the balance of the week. I'll have to check with the clerk about that. But definitely on Monday and Tuesday, for your purposes, we'll be starting at 9. Please remember my instruction. You can't discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. You can't do any independent research concerning the issues in this case. Go on the internet to look anything up. Avoid all contact with anything on television, radio, social media, or any other print or other forms of media. And Certainly, if your travels take you up Loudon Road or in the areas that we've been talking about, that's fine. Any of the locations we've talked about, that's fine. I'm not saying don't go to Shaw's, don't go to Walmart. You certainly can do your shopping where you would ordinarily do your shopping, but don't go back in any of those places specifically for doing your own research in this case. Again, hope everyone we all hear the coughs in the courtroom, so I'm keenly aware, not that I'm not faulting anyone, people have to cough, they have to cough, but please try to get some rest, and I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you back for a 9 o'clock start on Monday morning.